All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, and got good news, bad news. Man, Terence Crawford may very well have to take a pay cut to make this Errol Spence Jr. fight after the numbers came out for Errol Spence Jr.'s gate in the fight against Yordenis Ugas versus in his fight against Yordenis Ugas. Again, good news, bad news. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and we are going to be in the 147-pound division for this fight. And let me tell you, man, no matter how many times you flip these numbers, it comes right back to what Tim Smith from the PBC said, which was they don't know if they've got the money to offer Terence Crawford for this fight. And there was some big news, though, for Errol Spence Jr. because his gate receipts came in for the fight with Yordenis Ugas. And they were very, very big. However, as big as they are, does not make up the gap based on these basic numbers that we will go through. Now, before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that bell, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Like and share the video if you wouldn't mind. All right, so first things first, Errol Spence Jr. is a very, very big draw. The numbers came out for his fight with Yordenis Ugas in Dallas Stadium. I'm not going to give you the specific numbers, but I'll give you the ballpark numbers. Basically, there were over 4,000. There were a little over 40,000 people in attendance. Roughly 37,000 odd numbers were paid tickets. A little over 3,000 were comp tickets, and the total revenue for the fight that came in was, before taxes, was over $5 million, slightly over $5 million, right? Big numbers. Now, if you want to know what that means, there's pretty much nobody else in that has fought at that level of competition that has those numbers. That is more than Gervonta Davis in his fight with Isaac Cruz and Ryan Garcia with his fight with Yuriorkis Gamboa combined. It is also $3 million bigger than the gate for Errol Spence Jr. Sean Porter in Vegas, which was like $2.8 million. It was also bigger than the gate because of the ticket prices, bigger than the gate for Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. because during this fight, there were like $1,000 tickets that got sold. So very big, not as big as Canelo Alvarez, who generated somewhere around, I believe, somewhere around $8 million or $9 million, with his fight with Billy Joe Saunders that took place last year. But $5 million is a lot. Now, I'm going to tell you what that means, though, now that we know all of these numbers are in, okay? And I'm going to use conservative estimates for Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, but my total number that I'm going to use, I'm telling you, is going to be very, very, very generous. So when I'm telling you that at the end of the day, well, let me tell you what I'm going to tell you. Terence Crawford, based on the numbers that came out from these last two guys' fights, would actually have to take a pay cut, earn less money in the fight with Errol Spence Jr. than he got paid in guaranteed money for the fight with Sean Porter, which was $6 million. Let me tell you how that pans out. Errol Spence Jr., between pay-per-views, I'm telling you I'm using conservative numbers, right? Errol Spence Jr., if you look at what the mainstream media said that he sold for his pay-per-view, which was around $250,000, and you multiply that times the price, which was $79, and then you $79, and then you add $79 a pay-per-view, and then you add in the cost, the gate that they had, right? Not talking about even taking out taxes, any of that out of the gate. That is $28 million in revenue between those two things for Errol Spence Jr. generated in his last fight. Look at what happened with Terence Crawford in his last fight. His pay-per-views, if you buy what they said, was $130,000. The price was about $70, $69.99. So now watch. I'm saying $79 for Errol, $69 pay-per-view for Terence Crawford. That is roughly 8.8 million. And then the gate, according to Dan Rayfield, for the Terence Crawford Sean Porter fight was roughly $1.2 million gate on 11,000 tickets sold. So the total amount, rounding that up, is about $10 million. So for Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas, right? Which, by the way, is not a big name fighter, Yordenis Ugas. Generated roughly $28 million if you go with conservative estimates between the pay-per-view and the gate. Look at Terence Crawford did roughly $10 million with Sean Porter between the pay-per-view and the gate. Got that? Now, this is where I'm saying I'm going to be generous in this. If you add them both together and act like they are completely different people that are attending the fights and buying the fights, which we know are not true, you have roughly $38 million that they generated when you combine their two fights. And that's where I'm saying, when I'm saying it's a $38 million fight, I'm being generous because you know that many people are bought one pay-per-view, bought the other pay-per-view. They bought both, but I'm going to treat them like they're totally separate pay-per-view sales with different people. And then you come up with the number of 38 million. Now, how much of that actually goes to the fighters? Roughly 45%. 10% is going to go to the paying off the distributors. 45% is what's going to go to the networks, and 45% is going to go to the promoters. And in this case, the promoters would be Terence Bud Crawford Promotions, Errol Spence Jr. Promotions. So you're looking at 45 million. You're looking at 45%, which comes up to around $17 million when you round, right? Now, what is the actual percentage that you would pay the fighters, right? If you look at what Errol did, which is roughly just short of 3 times as much as what Terence did, you come up with around 70-30. At 70-30, which is the equitable split, right? 70-30, Terence Bud Crawford would come out with $6.8 million. He got $6 million fighting and guaranteed money fighting Sean Porter. Now, why do I say that he would most likely have to take a pay cut? Because those are not two different groups of people buying the pay-per-views. So adding the $28 million from Errol and $10 million from Bud, much of the $10 million from Bud are probably already calculated in the 28 that bought Errol Spence Jr. And that's just a fact. So if you solve for that, you're looking at what Tim Smith had to say, which was, we don't want to insult Bud with the offer that we're going to make him. Because first of all, they're not going to guarantee him $6 million for that fight. And if they did guarantee him $6 million a fight, he's not going to get anything on the back end of that pay-per-view, because they would be the ones taking all the chances when Errol is getting guarantees of $1.5 million. So really and truly, again, the money is pretty much what Eddie, who also said this, Tim Smith said that from the PBC, said it. And then you also said it, you heard it, not directly. They talked about it when Leonard Ellerbe was talking about making fights between like Vasily Lomachenko, or specifically Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis, when he said, how much money do you think he's going to want to fight Gervonta Davis? Those guys are getting paid huge guarantees, and that money is not going to be there. This is the same type of equation I promise you these guys were talking about when they said the money is not there for the fight. In order for Terence Crawford to make this fight and get this fight made, Errol Spence Jr. is going to have to give up money, and Terence Crawford is going to have to give up money in order to make that fight happen. And here's another little complication: the risk that goes along with the PBC of actually making that fight. Because as you see, Errol Spence Jr. is generating 28 million. Is 28 million against Yordenis Ugas by himself. If he fights Keith Thurman, you may say that could go up to $33 million for fights with Keith Thurman. Or if he moves up with other guys, he'll probably wind up making the same amount of money in each of those fights. They could make their money more easily by doing 2 and 3 Errol Spence Jr. fights than taking a chance that paying Terence Crawford big money, knowing Terence Crawford is a dangerous opponent, and him walking away with their earning potential leaning into the future. So, I know people don't like to talk about the business of boxing, but once I saw that the 5 million gate, I was like, wow, this guy's a big cash cow. And one thing that goes along with this cash cow stuff is, are they going to risk the cash cow? And Terence Crawford fighting Errol Spence Jr. is going to want to get paid significantly better than he got paid for fighting Sean Porter. As a result of a purse bid, right? He's going to want $10-15 million for that Errol Spence Jr. fight. And that, my brother, if you combine the two, literally combine them again and treat them like everybody that bought Bud and went to Bud's fight are completely different people than the ones that bought Errol's pay-per-views and went to Errol's fight. Man, that money looks real funny. Bud is going to have to take a cut, man. And Errol's going to have to take a cut. These egos are really going to have to settle in with each other, and they're going to really have to want it. And both these guys are going to have a lot to risk. It's just going to be interesting to see if and how they make that. Now, I don't doubt that these guys may be able to find something, but it's got to be somebody like Showtime willing to put in a lot of guaranteed money like they did with Canelo Alvarez and those fight offers that he gave them. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.